It was supposed to be a fun weekend. That's what Derek told me. He said his brothers, Ron and Kyle, wanted us all to take a short road trip, just for laughs, to bond. I was hesitant. His brothers never liked me. They were always making little jokes at my expense, whispering things when they thought I couldn't hear. But Derek begged. He said things had been rough lately, and we needed a break. I gave in. We left early that morning in Kyle's old pickup truck. I sat squished between Derek and the door. They joked the whole way. Loud, obnoxious laughter that didn't include me. I tried to smile and stay polite. I even offered them snacks I'd packed. They barely said thanks. 3 hours in, we stopped for gas. It was an old station off a lonely road. No other cars, just a dusty building with one working pump and a man behind the counter who looked like he hadn't smiled in years. "I need to stretch," I said, opening the door. I went inside to use the bathroom and grab a bottle of water. When I came out, the truck was gone. Gone. I blinked hard, thinking maybe they'd pulled around back. I walked to the edge of the building and looked. Nothing. At first, I laughed nervously. Maybe they were playing around. Maybe they were watching me from somewhere close by, waiting for a reaction. "Derek?" I called. My voice echoed. "Ron? Kyle?" Nothing. I stood in the parking lot for a full minute, clutching my water bottle, waiting. Then I saw a small piece of paper fluttering near the pump. I picked it up. It was a receipt, with a note scribbled on the back. "Figure it out yourself." I froze. They really did it. They left me, on purpose. I ran inside the gas station, heart pounding. "Excuse me," I said to the man behind the counter. "Did you see where the truck went? The guys I was with?" He looked up slowly. "They took off laughing, said you'd catch up." I tried calling Derek, but my phone wasn't in my pocket. Panic set in. I ran back outside and looked around. I had nothing. No bag, no ID, no money. Everything was in the truck. They had planned this. They took everything and left me here like garbage. For a long while, I just stood there. The sun was hot, and the dust stung my eyes. My feet hurt. I felt small, stupid, and broken. My hands trembled. It was like my heart had been ripped out and stomped on. But as the minutes passed, something inside me shifted. They expected me to panic, to beg, to call and cry, to make a fool of myself. That's what they wanted. One more laugh. But I didn't give them that. I looked down the road. One way led back to them. The other? I didn't know where it led. But suddenly, I didn't care. I turned away from the gas station and started walking. If you were Jenna, what would you have done after they left you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful true life stories. Looking back, I should have seen it coming. That prank at the gas station wasn't just some random act of cruelty. It was the final blow in a marriage that had been slowly rotting for years. When I first met Derek, he was charming, funny, thoughtful. He brought me flowers on our third date and listened when I talked about my dreams. We got married after a year. At first, everything was sweet. We had movie nights, silly dance-offs in the kitchen, and whispered dreams about the kids we'd one day have. But when Derek lost his job 2 years into our marriage, things changed. He got quieter, then colder. He stopped trying. I offered to take a second job to help, but he snapped at me, saying I was making him feel like less of a man. He spent most days sulking on the couch or hanging out with his brothers, Ron and Kyle. And that's when things got worse. Ron and Kyle were never kind to me. From the start, they treated me like an outsider. Like I was stealing Derek from their little boys' club. They'd come over, make a mess, laugh loudly, and nudge Derek to join in on their immature games. One time, they poured salt into my sugar jar just to watch my reaction when I sipped my coffee. Another time, they locked me out of the house during a barbecue and laughed as I knocked on the back door for 10 minutes. Derek didn't even get up to open it. He just sat there, drinking a beer, pretending not to hear me. When I told Derek it wasn't funny, that it was cruel, he said I was being too sensitive, that they were just messing around. "You need to learn how to take a joke, babe," he'd say, shaking his head like I was the problem. But it wasn't just jokes. They made comments about my cooking, about my clothes, about my body. Ron once said at dinner, "Jenna, you ever think about going to the gym? Not saying you're fat, just, preventative." I remember staring at my plate, blinking back tears. Derek laughed. "Don't be mean," he said. But he didn't mean it. He just didn't want me to make a scene. I started to shrink in that house. I stopped inviting friends over. I stopped dressing up. I stopped speaking up. I kept thinking, maybe if I just keep the peace, maybe things will go back to the way they were. But they didn't. One night, Derek came home drunk after being out with Ron and Kyle. He reeked of alcohol and cheap cologne. "I told them you were a buzzkill," he slurred, collapsing onto the couch. "They think you're controlling me." I sat on the edge of the sofa, watching him snore. And something in my chest cracked. That night, I slept in the guest room. I stared at the ceiling for hours, asking myself, what happened to the man I married? I tried one more time. The next morning, I made breakfast and sat across from him. "Derek," I said gently, "I don't feel loved anymore. I feel like I'm just here." He didn't even look up from his phone. "You're being dramatic." I nodded. I cleaned up the plates, wiped the counters, and told myself I was done asking for kindness. So when Derek invited me on that weekend road trip with his brothers, I didn't expect warmth. I didn't expect laughter. I expected silence, mockery, and maybe a headache. But I didn't expect to be abandoned. That part, leaving me stranded at a gas station with nothing but a bottle of water and a mocking note, was something I never could have predicted. Still, deep down, maybe I wasn't as shocked as I should have been. Maybe part of me had been waiting for the last straw, and they handed it to me. Now I wasn't just a broken wife. I was free. The road shimmered under the hot afternoon sun as I walked away from the gas station. With each step, the sound of my sandals hitting the pavement reminded me that I had no idea where I was going. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just walked. A few cars passed, but none stopped. I didn't blame them. If I saw a dusty, sweaty woman walking alone in the middle of nowhere, I might keep driving too. My legs began to ache after an hour. My mouth was dry. I clutched the small bottle of water I bought before Derek and his brothers sped off, trying to ration every sip. My thoughts were swirling. What if I collapsed? What if I got attacked? What if I had made a huge mistake by not calling someone? But then again, who would I call? The woman I used to be would have begged Derek to come back. She would have cried into the phone, apologized even though it wasn't her fault, and promised to laugh next time they made her the punchline. That woman didn't exist anymore. I walked for what felt like forever before a dusty old sedan slowed down and pulled over ahead of me. I hesitated, heart pounding. The back of my neck prickled. What if this was dangerous? But the sun was starting to dip, and I couldn't walk all night. The passenger window rolled down. A woman in her 60s peered out, her gray hair tied back in a loose braid. She wore oversized sunglasses and a flowy blouse covered in tiny sunflowers. "You look like you could use a ride," she said. I studied her face. She didn't look dangerous, just curious, kind, like someone's favorite aunt. I nodded slowly. "I won't be trouble," she smiled. "Trouble usually doesn't ask first. Hop in." I climbed into the front seat and she handed me a paper napkin. For the sweat, or the tears, whichever comes first. That made me laugh for the first time in days. "My name's Mabel," she said, eyes still on the road. "You?" I paused. "Jenna." "Well, Jenna," Mabel said, "I was just passing through to visit my cousin 2 towns over. Lucky for you, I like company." We drove in silence for a while, and the breeze from the open window cooled my face. I stared out at the fields and the occasional farmhouse, my mind still catching up to the reality that I had left everything behind. "You running from something?" Mabel asked gently. I turned my head to her. "Sort of. Maybe just done being run over." She nodded like she understood completely. "Men?" "3 of them," I said. "One was supposed to love me. The other 2 made sure he forgot how." Mabel didn't ask for details. She just kept driving. humming a tune I didn't recognize. After about an hour, we pulled into a small town. It had one diner, a hardware store, a laundromat, and a faded motel with a crooked sign that read, "Rest Easy." She parked in front of the office. "This place is old but clean," Mabel said. "I stayed here once when my radiator blew out. They've got decent coffee in the morning, and the front desk lady likes to talk your ear off." I looked at her. "You've done enough already. Thank you." She tilted her head. "You got money for a room?" I didn't, but I didn't answer. Mabel reached into her purse and pulled out 3 $20 bills. She pressed them into my hand before I could speak. "I've been where you are," she said softly. "Sometimes strangers are kinder than family." I felt a lump rise in my throat. "I don't know how to repay you." "You just did," she said, smiling. "You reminded me why I always stop for lost souls." She started the engine again, waved, and pulled away. I stood there for a moment, watching her disappear down the road, sunlight catching in her silver hair like a halo. I walked into the motel, gave the woman at the desk the cash, and took the key to room 7. That night, I lay on the thin mattress and stared at the ceiling. I didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going back. Room 7 became my hiding place. The wallpaper was peeling, the sheets smelled faintly of bleach, and the air conditioner rattled like it was trying to escape the wall, but to me, it was peace. For the first time in years, I could hear myself think without being interrupted by laughter that wasn't mine. The next morning, I woke early. My muscles were sore from walking, and my head ached from everything I'd been holding inside. But I got dressed, tied my hair back, and stepped outside. The sky was soft and pink. I didn't know what I was looking for, but I knew I couldn't stay locked in that room forever. I asked the woman at the motel front desk if there were any local places hiring. She squinted at me over her glasses. "You got any experience waitin' tables?" "I can learn," I said quickly. "I'm a fast learner." She scribbled something on a notepad. "Talk to Clara. Owns the diner 2 blocks down. Opens at 6. Tell her Sandy sent you." I nodded. "Thank you." The diner was small, maybe 10 tables and a counter with red stools that squeaked when you sat down. It smelled like bacon and hot coffee, and every surface gleamed with elbow grease. Clara was a tall woman with dark curly hair tied back in a scarf. Her eyes were sharp, but not unkind. When I introduced myself and mentioned Sandy, she looked me up and down, then tossed me an apron. "You break dishes, you pay for 'em," she said. "Start with clearing tables. I'll decide if I like you after the breakfast rush." That's how it began. I cleared plates, refilled coffees, wiped sticky syrup off tables, and smiled at people who barely noticed me. I didn't tell them my story. I didn't even use my real name. I introduced myself as Jenny. Close enough to Jenna that I'd respond, but different enough to feel like a shield. Days passed, then weeks. I saved every tip, ate leftover pie slices when Clara wasn't looking, and spent my nights in room 7. Clara never pried, but she watched. One evening after we closed up, she lit a cigarette out back and said, "You've got the look of someone who left a man behind." I didn't reply. She nodded like she already knew. "Good. Some men are worth leaving." Over time, Clara taught me more than just how to carry 3 plates at once or handle rude customers. She taught me how to hold my chin up, how to laugh at things again, how to remember that I mattered. I began to blend into the rhythm of the town. I memorized the regulars' orders. I helped a teenage girl named Lacey study for her GED in between shifts. I learned how to fix the coffee machine when it sputtered, but I never let my guard down. I didn't use social media. I paid for everything in cash. I didn't reach out to anyone from my old life, not even my sister. I didn't want to be found. Every now and then, I'd dream about Derek. Not in a loving way, more like a ghost. Sometimes I'd wake up breathless, certain he was just outside the door. Other nights, I dreamed he was still laughing as he drove away from that gas station. But each time I woke up, I reminded myself, he doesn't control me anymore. 4 months into working at the diner, Clara handed me a small envelope. Inside was a key. "What's this?" I asked. "Room 5, she said. Sandy says you've outgrown 7. It's got a bigger window and less rattling. I stared at her. Call it a promotion, she added, lighting another cigarette. You earned it. I moved that night. The new room had curtains with little yellow flowers on them and a quiet ceiling fan that barely whispered. I sat on the bed, holding the key in my hand, and felt something I hadn't felt in years. Safe. I still didn't know what the future looked like. I didn't know how long I'd stay or what came next. But for the first time since Derek sped away and left me in the dust, I felt like maybe I had a life worth living. Derek probably thought I'd call him within the hour. He probably laughed with Ron and Kyle all the way home, imagining me stranded at that gas station, angry but still desperate to come back. He had always counted on that. But I never called. Not that day, not the next, not ever. From what I heard later, bits and pieces that came through people who once knew both of us, Derek didn't take my silence seriously at first. He waited, phone in hand, smirking, thinking I'd come crawling. When I didn't, the panic set in. He tried calling, but I'd left my phone in the truck. No answer. He messaged, emailed, left voicemails, still nothing. He drove back to the gas station a few days later, asked the man behind the counter if he'd seen a woman. The man shrugged. She left with some old lady in a car, said she wasn't coming back. Derek went pale, they said. He went home expecting maybe I'd show up, but I didn't. He called my sister. She hadn't heard from me. He asked my old job. They hadn't seen me since I quit. He even went to the police, tried to report me missing. But the officer at the desk asked, "Did you abandon your wife at a gas station?" When Derek hesitated, the officer gave him a long look and said, "Sounds like she left on purpose." No report was filed. By the second week, he was unraveling. I know Derek. His ego was too big to handle being ignored. He wasn't used to silence. He was used to control. His friends began asking questions. "Where's Jenna? Is she okay?" Derek lied. He said I was staying with family, that we needed space. But eventually the truth started leaking. Ron and Kyle couldn't keep their mouths shut. They told someone it was just a prank. But people didn't laugh. Not this time. The story spread around town. How Derek and his brothers drove me 200 miles away and left me on the side of the road like a piece of trash. People stared at him differently after that. His boss at the warehouse pulled him aside. Said the company couldn't afford the bad press. He was let go a week later. Unemployed. Alone. Embarrassed. He stopped going out. He drank more. His apartment, once neat because I kept it that way, became a mess. Pizza boxes stacked in the corner, beer cans under the couch, piles of laundry on the floor. No one came over anymore, not even Ron and Kyle. They said he was too moody. Every few days he'd still call my number, even though the phone wasn't in use. Just to hear the automated message, "This number is no longer available." He sent emails, all unread. He messaged my old social media, but I hadn't logged in for months. He even showed up at my sister's house, eyes sunken, asking if she had heard anything. She slammed the door in his face. Weeks turned into months. The silence stretched. He began showing up at places we used to go, hoping to see me, the diner, the bookstore, that bench by the lake. I wasn't in any of them, because I didn't just disappear. I removed myself from his world, and the more he realized he couldn't find me, the more desperate he became. He messaged me one last time. "I'm sorry. Please come home. I'll do anything. Just tell me where you are." I didn't reply. He called again the next night, and the next, 89 times. Still nothing. He didn't understand. This wasn't a silent treatment. It was goodbye. 4 years passed. 4 quiet, healing, beautiful years. I was no longer Jenna, the broken woman left at a gas station like a forgotten suitcase. In this new town, I was Jenny, the woman who ran the diner with steady hands, who remembered everyone's birthday, who smiled even when the days were long and the tips were short. The motel room was just a chapter, a beginning. After a year of saving every penny, Clara helped me rent a small apartment above the bookstore. It had creaky floors and a chipped bathtub, but it was mine. I painted the walls soft yellow and lined the windows with plants. In the mornings, sunlight poured in like honey. At the diner, I earned Clara's trust, and eventually, a partnership. She added my name to the sign, Clara Jennings. Every time I passed it, I felt something warm settle in my chest. I wasn't just surviving anymore, I was living. I had a routine now. I opened the diner by 6 a.m., served coffee to sleepy farmers and retired teachers. I knew their stories, who just became a grandfather, who lost a dog, who was celebrating 50 years of marriage. I didn't have to be anyone else. I didn't have to explain myself. After work, I volunteered at the local shelter. I helped girls who had left difficult homes, girls who looked like I used to. Lost, small, unsure. I taught them how to cook simple meals, how to budget, how to speak up for themselves. One of them, a shy teenager named Willow, once asked me, "Did someone ever hurt you the way my stepdad hurt my mom?" I looked her in the eyes and said, "Yes, but he doesn't get to hurt me anymore." I was stronger now, calmer, lighter. My hair was longer. I'd cut it short after I left, like shedding the old me, but now it curled over my shoulders again. I wore clothes that felt like me. Soft sweaters, worn-in jeans, leather boots I bought secondhand but polished like treasure. People knew me as kind, steady, dependable. No one knew about the woman I used to be. And that's how I liked it. Until one Tuesday afternoon. The diner was slow, the lunchtime crowd had thinned, and Clara had gone out back to check on the food delivery. I was wiping down the counter when the bell above the door jingled. I glanced up. A man stood in the doorway. At first, I didn't recognize him. His face was thinner, his eyes dull. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in weeks. His clothes were clean but wrinkled, like they'd been pulled from a suitcase in a rush. He didn't say anything, just stared. I felt a chill move up my spine. It took less than 10 seconds before I knew. It was Derek. He looked different. We both did. But there was no mistaking those eyes, or that familiar way he stood, arms stiff like he didn't know what to do with them. I didn't panic. I didn't run. I simply stood there, cloth in hand, heart pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. He opened his mouth to speak, then closed it again. His shoulders sagged. I took a breath. Slow. Steady. "Can I help you?" I asked, my voice even. He blinked, startled. "Jenna." It was the first time I'd heard my name in 4 years. I didn't correct him. I didn't move. I waited. He took a shaky step forward and pulled out his phone, showing me the screen. 89 missed calls. "Please," he said quietly, "just hear me out." I didn't answer. I wasn't the same woman he left at that gas station, and now he was standing in my world. He looked like a ghost. Not the man I married. Not even the man who left me behind at that gas station 4 years ago. No. This version of Derek was smaller, pale, eyes hollow, like someone who'd been living with regret as a roommate. He stood in the middle of the diner like a man who wasn't sure if he'd walked into a memory or a dream. "Jenna," he said again, voice cracking. "Please. I've been searching for you for years." Clara walked in from the kitchen just then, holding a box of produce. She glanced between us, then at me. I gave her a small nod. She got the message. She quietly set the box down and disappeared into the back, leaving us alone. Derek stepped forward slowly, like I might vanish if he moved too fast. I didn't flinch. "You look different," he said, studying my face. "I am," I replied. "And it's Jenny now." He lowered his eyes, shame written all over him. "I guess I deserve that." I didn't respond. He sat at the counter, in the exact stool Mr. Halverson usually took every morning at 7:15 for his bacon and eggs. It looked wrong, like the past was sitting in the present seat. "I didn't think you'd ever leave me," Derek said. I thought you'd call, that you'd be mad, cry, but come back." I folded the dish towel in my hand slowly. "You thought abandoning me in the middle of nowhere was a joke? That I'd laugh about it too?" His shoulders collapsed inward. "I was stupid. I thought it was harmless. Ron and Kyle. Don't blame them, I cut in. You weren't a child. You chose that moment. You chose to humiliate me. He nodded slowly. I know, and I've paid for it, every day since. I lost my job, my friends. I can't sleep most nights. I kept thinking, if I could just find you, I could explain. I looked at him, this man I once loved, and I felt nothing. Not hate, not anger, just emptiness. Because I had already mourned the marriage, the betrayal, the woman I used to be. What do you want from me, Derek? I asked. He blinked. I don't know. Closure? A second chance, maybe? I just want to fix it. I placed the towel on the counter gently. There's nothing to fix, I said. You didn't break a vase, Derek. You broke me, and I had to rebuild myself from pieces you didn't even bother picking up. He looked down at his hands, shaking slightly. I miss you. I looked around the diner, the humming lights, the scent of pie baking, the wall with Polaroids of our regulars, some of whom called me family now. I don't miss you, I said softly. He swallowed hard. I walked to the coffee pot and poured him a cup. I set it in front of him. Drink it, then leave. He stared at the cup, then up at me. Is this goodbye? I met his gaze. No, that happened 4 years ago. He didn't speak again. He sipped the coffee slowly in silence. When he finished, he placed a crumpled $5 bill on the counter and stood. He walked to the door, paused, and looked back one last time. I'm glad you're okay, he said. I'm more than okay, I replied. I'm free. He nodded once, then stepped out into the afternoon light and disappeared. I let out a slow breath. Clara peeked from the kitchen. He gone? Gone, I said. She came over and stood beside me. You okay? I nodded. Better than ever. That night, I walked home under the orange sky, past the bookstore, past the library steps where Willow had once cried after failing a test, past the mural I helped paint on the school wall. This was my world now. One I built with kindness, with work, with quiet courage. Derek was a chapter I had finished long ago. I unlocked the door to my apartment, stepped inside, and smiled at the smell of lavender and lemon. I didn't need closure. I had something better. Peace.